Welcome back to the Human Nexus podcast. My name is Andrew Brazis. I am a marketing and business consultant and private chef.
Welcome back. My name is Miss Laura Machiste. I am a online tarot reader, holistic massage therapist, and energy coach. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about soulmates, twin flames, soul ties, karmic relationships, and our opinion on those and what we feel like is the alignment for that and the meaning for those in our lives. And I feel like this is something that a lot of people are questionable on, especially when they meet somebody new. They're like, is this what is this? Is it a twin flame? Is it a karmic? Is it a soulmate? So I personally feel like we have one twin flame because
Interesting. I don't know
I
if I agree with that. Go ahead. No.
so
Go ahead.
well, when you hear the word twin, it gives me like one other person. So that what gives me the indication that if there are multiple twin flames, and how were we twinning with everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I agree.
but for I okay, so to start off with twin flames, I feel like there is like a spiritual like belief around it that like we come
hmm
here in pairs and we get split, and then you find your twin flame throughout your life or you don't. And a lot of the times they indicate that usually it's very difficult. It's like usually you meet your twin flame at the unevolved sense of self, and there's like that, twin flame separation, and then like, will we come back into divine union? Now here's another thing that might not be that, I guess, where everybody may believe this as well, but I personally feel that when you come to contact with your twin flame, there is like this resonance with them. There is this
hmm
possible same type of childhood or some type of similar experiences throughout life that just are like, wow, you went through something like that too, in a sense where they push you to like the next level of where you're supposed to go. And I don't necessarily feel like every twin flame in the world are supposed to be together, because does everyone evolve in this lifetime? No.
Yeah, that's true. I would say too, like I think of twin flames as like yin and yang. So like if you find a
Mhm.
twin flame, it's like that perfect balance
Right.
of what you are.
But I like to feel like although there is that duality, there is still like that similarity where like for example, when I mean I don't even still know if this person is my twin flame or not. At first I thought
Mhm.
someone was my twin flame, and then I met another person. I was like, wait a minute, this sounds a little bit more like how they say it sounds, where like they
Mhm.
challenge you to grow. Um but I personally don't feel like everybody belongs with their twin flame, because there's absolutely no way that 100% of people that come to earth, there's no way everybody evolves.
Mhm.
And if the twin flame union comes into divine union through evolution, then that would mean that there's only like a select few or handful of pairs that actually like get to that point. But
Mhm.
I don't like to like write it off altogether that that is the divine union per se. So what do you think about twin flame people
Well,
relationship?
I don't know. Like I go back and forth. Like obviously in this conversation already. Like no, immediately probably not. But I think the possibility would make sense. Like if there was like a divine counterpart, it would make sense to have, like I said earlier, like a balance of that.
Hmm.
Or like somebody who would perfectly balance that union out. But at the same time, it's like this kind of goes into like soul contracts a little bit. But if you believe there's a soul contract, maybe your contract doesn't mean you meet your twin flame, if that's the language we're using to, in that contract, maybe you meet like 30 other people. These numbers are outrageous, but you meet like 30 other
Mm-hmm.
people and you're like there to help them or yourself or a combination of the two to like fulfill those contracts instead.
Right.
Um, so like I would agree that yes, not everybody would meet their twin flame, but then also that gets into like what is like if it's a twin flame, we're talking romantic partnerships. What does that mean for someone that's gay? Or like
Right.
what does that mean like not like physically, but like in the universal sense. So it's like there's
Mm-hmm.
these weird,
That's a good point.
yeah, and I think that would make it difficult for people to navigate because there's not, as far as I know, like language or tools or material to
Mm-hmm.
use. Um, but I definitely am leaning on the side of like, yeah, anything's possible. And I
Right.
would like the romantic in me would want to be believing in that because I think that would be
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate goal and love to strive for is like someone who balances you out perfectly, for sure.
Right, exactly. And that's how because like I don't know, like twin flames could just be like a made up thing that
Yeah.
psychics or readers use to, attach someone to an
Well, like
outcome.
what are the two most important things in a reading people want to know? Their love life and then how much money are they making or gonna get or lose.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So mm,
Yeah, because I've had like a couple of like phony readers, like they'll tell me like, oh, this person and this other person telling me this, and then I'm like, okay, well, everyone's telling me something different, so that means that everybody's canceled because
right.
now there is no substance to any of the messages. So I kind of just like to like feel it out on my own now,
Hmm.
but that's
Well,
where it's a
that's
little bit confusing.
like trusting your intuition, like in any
Hmm.
partnership, like if it's romantic or friend or like business, it's like, I mean, having an experience where you're like, wow, that felt really aligned. Like I definitely
Right.
know, like there's, I don't know, weird instances like you meet somebody in a grocery store and
Hmm.
you see them for like 5 minutes and they say something and that like changes your life for whatever reason. Whether you see them again or not, like that would
Right.
be like to me like an intuitive like soul contract moment. And they don't
Hmm.
necessarily need to be in your life for, years or months. I mean, it could be like a 10-minute exchange and it's like, oh shit. And you could have like, I don't know, like if you go into past lives and soul contracts, you could have met that person. You could
I
have been that
love that.
person's spouse in another life.
Yes. And I love that you said that too, because especially with like the connections to receiving signs from the universe, a lot of people are like, well, I was seeing all these numbers, I was seeing this person's name, like they must be the one. And from my experience, I have realized the universe is just in constant communication with us. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that someone is it. They might just be in communication with you, like, hey, here's the name Fred, because Fred will be saying something to you in a week, and we're in
Hmm.
constant communication with you. But I feel like people put so much importance on it where they're like, oh, I got this sign, or I got this reading, or this person told me they were my twin flame, so they must be, and it almost creates like this attachment
Like,
to it.
yeah, it can create like a really toxic attachment or
Hmm.
detachment depending on the situation.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to navigate, I don't know, intuitively a situation. And I think too, like nothing really lasts forever, like even
Right.
relationship wise.
Hmm.
And the things that last really, really long, like either you're being healthy and navigating all the obstacles, because any healthy relationship, you're going to have those problems, or you're just like completely detached. I mean, I've
Hmm.
seen like older couples who are like, oh yeah, we've been together for 60 years. There's actually like a famous video on the internet, which is kind of gross. But I forget, I want to say it was like Dane Cook was like interviewing people on the street or something. Maybe it wasn't Dane Cook, I don't
Hmm.
know. But he was like asking this old couple, like, what's your secret? And then the male's like, oh, you just cheat every once in a while. And it's like, that's not that doesn't work. That dude,
Right.
obviously, yeah, that's like not what you should be doing, probably. Like I'm sure
Hmm.
someone out there it works for, but
Right.
um,
And that almost like brings a sense of like a false connection, like in my eyes. Like if that's the case, then
yeah, that's what I'm
like,
trying to say. Like you can
yeah.
definitely be toxic and hold on to those false connections
Hmm.
if you're not being intentional, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I feel like with the alignment to the late, like, for example, when you're connecting to whoever, if you are spiritual or you do like twin flame soulmate soul contracts or karmics, you probably are labeling them at
Mhm.
some point in time, which as something I have recently like learned that like labeling kind of like removes like anything else that the connection could be. And I feel like to go on what you said with the soul contracts of like how certain people, you know, may align with you and conversate with you or align with you and say something to you, whether it's for a season or for a long time. I almost feel like that goes hand in hand with like what I view as soulmates. Like I feel like we have a
Mhm.
bunch of soulmates. I feel like some
Yeah.
are platonic and some are romantic. And in the sense where I feel like if maybe your twin flame isn't the one, then maybe there's like a grand soulmate, like
Mhm.
that soul contract energy that they're like, well, you have to encounter your twin flame for the growth, but like I'm really the soul that your energy will end up with. But
Mhm.
I guess you could say mainstream spiritual media goes straight to twin flame union, twin flame union. It has to
Yeah.
be that. It has to be that. And I don't necessarily feel like it has to. And
Yeah. Agreed.
I feel like that should be something that changes, at least in like the spiritual community. Because I feel like
Mhm.
it gives a lot of false hope to those toxic connections where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they said my twin flame challenges me and they're cheating on me with everyone. So they must be my twin flame because this must be the challenge. It's like, nah, you probably just connected to someone who sucks.
Yeah. Or like yes and or yes or you connected with somebody who like your souls were, if we're talking soul contracts, like aligned,
Hmm.
and then you fulfilled the contract.
Right.
And then but like if you're fulfilling a contract on like a metaphysical level, but you still are attached to them in the physical, excuse me,
Mm,
like that's really hard to detach from. Like if you love somebody and you're both
right.
like, yeah, this is not good, like you gotta walk away from that.
Like I envision some contracts to say like I will meet you when you are 25 years old and I'm going to break your heart so bad that it's going to get you
Mhm.
to start this business because that's your purpose, but I have to break your heart in the
Yeah.
contract of the alignment because if you didn't go through this then you wouldn't have started this business or you would have never moved and you were supposed to meet your soulmate in this town so I had to come break your heart in this town so you would move.
Mhm.
So I feel like there's so much to that where I feel like there is like a plethora of different types of like contracts we can have with the people. And I feel like a lot of them are for growth and evolution. And growth is usually uncomfortable. So
Mhm.
a lot of the times it might be something that feels uncomfortable or might feel uncomfortable detaching from, which is kind of what I feel like I just went through, sort of like aligning with someone on their journey just to realize it's not the alignment that I'm on in the path, like maybe I was a pawn in the universe's game, Like I
Yeah.
feel like they use people, but I almost feel like other people are used back. It's like everybody's
Yeah.
being used by the
Yeah.
universe.
Well, I think like to me, my best description for myself is like we're all like our own little planet. And like we
Hmm.
just get sucked up into an orbit sometimes, and that orbit's
Right.
like gonna shoot us off in the right direction like once we find a better orbit, but like
Hmm.
we're just in orbit for a while and then we, I don't know, do our laps or whatever you want to call it, our rotations, and then our new contract starts and we get sucked into that orbit, and then now
Right.
all of a sudden, we're just kind of moving throughout the universe. But it's
Yeah.
saying that the universe uses us, I think is
I think
uh
they do.
Yeah, it feels like that for sure. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't
Sometimes I
know.
meet people and I'm like, I don't know why I met you, but you must need me for a moment, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Which is good.
Yeah. It's good to have the awareness, but sometimes,
Yeah.
like back in the day, I was like a super hopeless romantic. So I was just like, that's
Mhm.
it. This is the one.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, okay, not everything is that. See it
Mhm.
for what it is. And a lot of the times it's just
And
either,
you're also like not if you're looking for it
hmm,
like that, then
right.
that's yeah.
Exactly. Because I feel like that's what happens with like the spiritual journey is
Mhm.
that, especially because like I feel like, okay, I don't know if this is on topic. It could be on topic, but it could not be on topic. I feel like certain people are shallowly spiritual and it's a
Mhm.
facade as some indication to be in a spiritual person's vibe. Because my indication, like if you are
Mhm.
actually spiritual, like inside, then like if you practice spirituality, then that's like something that you would do. But I almost feel like some people who aren't spiritual might hit someone with yeah, maybe we're soulmates. And it's like you don't even really know what that is. You're just saying that because you know I'm spiritual and that's like a mainstream media thing. Because I feel like there's like pretenders out there.
Yeah. It's like oh, it's almost like predatory
Mm,
spiritualness. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like being
exactly.
weaponized. And I would say if anybody's listening to this, if you come up on something like that, try to see if
Mhm.
there's any like signs that show up. Like don't tell them what you're experiencing, just ask them what their experience is. And because I
Mhm.
feel like it's pretty common in the spiritual community to be like, oh, I saw this thing and it meant XYZ to me.
Mhm.
And me being the person that I am, I've shared those with different people, like romantically, and getting a response that feels intuitive is a much different feeling and validation than getting it from somebody who I know it's not intuitive and I know they're kind of just like saying it to get by or like make a deeper connection.
Mhm. Right.
So like definitely trust your gut there.
And that's where I feel like those people are the karmic people, the people that give off
Mm,
the facade of everything you've always wanted, that give off the
mm,
facade of the spiritual divine union, only to like rip your heart out and stuff like that, or to be a
yeah,
totally different individual in a week or so down the road. I feel like those are karmic energies. And I feel like those are the ones that will
interesting.
free willingly cause you to repeat cycles.
Yeah. But uh I would say in experience, if you can see the cycle, I mean just like anything else, like mental health or whatever, if you see the cycle,
Mhm.
you're able to, use your tools or whatever and break out of it. And then once you do that,
Right.
and you see the other side, you're like, oh shit, and then you just like don't fall for it again. Like the signs to see, which is really important.
Exactly. Because I feel like karmics are just that as important as like
Mhm.
the soulmate and the twin flame vibe. Because I feel like the karmic is the energy that's teaching you to love your soul. As like
Mm.
the
Yeah.
soulmate energy kind of gives you, like, okay, do we come together as a whole? But I feel like the karmic forces you to individual individually level up. Like I feel like a karmic is either gonna you break free and you like skyrocket, or you stay and you spiral down. I feel like up or down.
Yeah. A karmic connection to me would be if I overcome it, that's me realizing what my power is as an individual. And
Right.
then I'm like, oh, this is what I'm worth or worthy of receiving,
Mhm.
romantic or whatever. Um, and then I think once you get to that level of like understanding that, that gives the room for a more, I don't know, divine, I guess, whatever word you want
Yeah.
to put there, connection to come in. because you can't hold that space if you're still like battling with all these like karmic lessons.
Exactly. And there's been a couple stories too that I've heard from like people that I've been friends with where
Mhm.
like they were in a toxic relationship and on and off thing for like 6 years. And then once they finally found it in themselves to remove themselves, a month later, all of a sudden, the best person in the world entered their life. And or that person was always around. They
Mhm.
just weren't actually given any energy or attention. So
Yeah.
sometimes like there's those weird things where you do learn the self lesson and you get rewarded, but just kind of like with contracts, like I don't know, my soul could have signed up for like 40 years of romantic contracts,
Yeah.
and I have some things to work through for the next whatever amount of time. Or maybe my soul was like, no, when she reaches this point, things will shift. As long as she has learned from the karmics, if you don't, we're just going to bring you some more.
Oh, this is really good because I think this is kind of tying into astrology a little bit. I think those patterns and cycles in astrology are like checkpoints. So it's
Mm,
like there's a 7 year cycle on I don't know, this given planet. And it's like,
right.
okay, well, that's when your soul contracts are happening. And if you can complete that cycle around near within, I mean, from my own personal experience, I think it's like 6 to 12 months,
Hmm.
like from what I've noticed. If you can complete those cycles in that time frame, then you essentially go on to the next level of,
Right.
if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that because there are, okay, so in our astrology charts, there are certain alignments that happen with what's happening now that happen in your chart
Hmm.
that create portals to
Hmm.
jump to either next timeline, stay where you are. So I actually just read something too that connects to this where they indicated that people are also portals. And
Hmm.
with the connection to when the alignment happens in your chart, that portal opens, but who attracts into your energy is going to match where you are at in that moment in time in your life.
Yeah.
So it is very, I feel like, beneficial to kind of look at the energies who are around you and be like, okay, what am I attracting in? Because that's what I'm putting out there. And a lot of the times it is, as humans, we just want to blame the other person. We're like, no, you're wrong, or you're a bad person. I'm perfect. It's you. When a
Hmm.
lot of the times, who we attract in have like some, whether it's like a couple percentage or it's a trait or it's a personality
I
aspect.
think it's like 100% you, the individual. Like
Yeah.
I've talked about this in the podcast before, but I started doing the full new moon rituals like 2022, and I haven't
Hmm.
missed a day or like a time. And in that process, it really keeps me accountable for like, okay, what am I releasing? What am I calling in? More so than anything else.
Hmm.
And like doing that and being like, oh, I forgot to like release this relationship or partnership or whatever. And then noticing when I do the next cycle or like maybe 2 cycles, this new thing comes in and it's like amazing compared to the last thing. I'm like, oh shit. Like I'm like watching this stuff happen in real time. So it's like
Hmm.
if you're vibrating, I guess, if your vibes are like in that
Yeah.
space of what you want to call in, I think it comes in from experience, like for me personally.
Hmm. And sometimes it's like hard to decipher because sometimes subconsciously we are projecting things that we are not aware that we are
Hmm.
doing. So, like, for
Yes.
example, I have like a hyper independence. Like, I
Hmm.
feel like I can do everything on my own, this, that, and the other. Where asking for any like help or assistance, or even just having another person doing it with me, I'm like, maybe not. I'll do it. I didn't realize that I was putting that out there. And I understood at one point in time when I started to align with people who are very self-absorbed. The energy matches, but maybe the way we're navigating it is different, but the energy is energy. So I feel like that could be a good indication for maybe someone watching where they're kind of like, damn, yeah, I went through that. I don't know what I'm putting out there. And kind of like realizing, like, oh, I didn't realize that putting that out there would align me with an individual that's like that. Because sometimes people separate their lives. So I might be hyper independent towards work, but it's still being projected everywhere,
Mhm.
you know?
It
So
reminds
I
me of
feel
the saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I feel like
like,
that's like, it's this internal, yeah, I think it's all internal being projected out in this
yeah,
case. Yeah.
exactly. So
Um,
that's my take on it.
and then even like speaking on that a little further, like when if you've ever deconstructed your religion, like I
Hmm.
asked friends who used to be Christian who are no longer Christian that they say, and I go, okay, well, what happens like it's the end of your life, like your life's
Hmm.
flashing before your eyes? Do you start praying to God? Are you Christian all of a sudden? And they're like, well,
Hmm.
yeah. I'm like, okay, well then you're still Christian. Like
Right.
you haven't released that, which is okay, but it's like
Hmm.
the things that we'll do to convince ourselves of, whatever we want to, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times, like our triggers and stuff like that,
Mhm.
like when we remove ourselves from the experience that triggers any of these things that we don't want to project out there, we're just putting it at like a dormant state where
Mhm.
it's still there. It's just not
Yeah.
being awakened. So
And yeah, and
that's
even
something
worse,
I
we're
had to
like
learn.
masking it.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
realizing that and asking yourself, okay, maybe I'm not anxious towards maybe like love right now, but I'm not doing anything with love. So how would you even know if you got over that if you don't put yourself back into the
Right.
experience to see if you've healed or not?
Yeah, it's so true. What do you think about like so we're talking soul contracts, soul or twin flames. What do you think about like soul tribe members?
So, Soul Tribe members has been like one of the biggest things for me in my life. I feel like, specifically with females, I
Hmm.
guess you could say. Just recently in the last like couple years, I have aligned with more like male Soul Tribe members. Like you're
Hmm.
probably one of my Soul Tribe members.
Yeah, I would say so.
And yeah. So I've always had this like wanting of like love and connection and stability. And I've been very grateful and very blessed in my life where maybe the divine union isn't here yet, but like the love that I receive from like my soul tribe members and like Audrey, who was on the podcast, and like she'll give me a call. She's like, I just have 20 minutes, but I want to check in on you. I'm like, thanks. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Hmm.
Um, and my friend Katie, who we'll actually have on here eventually, I met her through massage school, and
Hmm.
we are yin and yang. She is very minimal action, and I'm on go, 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 go. And we've like learned from each other. When I first met her, I was very like, don't talk to me about nobody. I don't want to date anyone. Don't try to match make me with anyone. Don't even try. And she was that like, I love everyone. Um, yeah, maybe they're not my type, but let's just go on a date with them and see if I like them. Like she was like that type or is that type of individual. And
Hmm.
honestly, like I learned a lot from her. I learned how to slow down. I learned how to be less judgmental. I learned how to kind of pause before doing things, and the amount of things that I've learned from her from meeting her, she has to be a soul tribe member. Like she has to be somebody that
And
contracted with.
would you say you knew this early, like in the connection?
Well, she is also spiritual. So,
Yeah.
as a Piscean, I pay attention to everything. You could
Mhm.
move your tissue box to the other side of the room and I will realize that the tissue box was not where it was the last time I was there. So in massage school, we're in like a huge room. So she was like
Mhm.
further away from me, but like in the times where like we're getting up or we're talking to people, moving around, I saw she had a 333 necklace. So I scoped her out before and I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
you gonna mean something. And I had already had my 888 tattoo, so it was just like perfect. And actually, a pawn in the game. This is going to go perfect with the story that we're telling. This person will never watch the podcast, so yeah, let's hope. Yeah, he was actually a Leo. So there was this guy in massage school that was trying to get with all the girls in class. Now,
Mhm.
men, if you're watching this, women talk to each other.
Don't do
Don't be
that.
don't be
If you're
that
a male,
idiot,
don't be
please.
that guy,
Yeah,
please.
don't,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah, just don't.
So he's tried to talk to everybody. I was one of the. It was me and this other girl that he first had his like predatory eyes on, basically.
Hmm.
I was an easier person for him to receive because I already knew him from my town.
Mm.
So, when there's that familiarity, they're
Yeah.
like, ooh, okay, let's go for her first. So it wasn't over like anybody. He had his eyes on everyone. It was just like who he would be more comfortable with at first. So he like started to like talk to me and like stuff like that. And here we go, a pawn in the universe's game.
Hmm.
And he sat on the side of the room where my friend Katie sat. And I sat on the other side of the room. So me and this guy started, it wasn't like any romantic yet or at all. It was just kind of like, oh, like how you been? I haven't seen you in so long. Like what made you come to massage school? So crazy. We're here at the same time. But if he didn't sit across on the other side of the room, I would have never sat there.
And
So
I'm going to interrupt you for one
go
second.
ahead.
So, did you grow up in similar circles, or like
No,
you grew up in the same place, or
we
no?
went to high school together, but we were not in like similar circles. Like he knows
Got
people
it.
I know and like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
hangs out with
Okay.
them now, but like
Hmm.
it wasn't like I was out partying with you and like hanging out with you on the
Yeah.
daily
Got
with
it.
like my other group of friends. Yeah. So, which was also even probably better for him because it was like, well, I don't really know her that well, but I do know her. So, like, this is my in
You
right here.
know her enough. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we became friends. He wanted to, they use like, let's study together, whatever those craps. So, he was like, oh, like, if we do partners, you should sit to the other side of the room. So, you're just already next to me if we partner up in this class. Because massage school, it's like, you have a partner. So I moved to the other side where my friend Katie was. And I moved there and I'm sitting next to this dude, but it's all like in the same vicinity. And then I started talking to her. But if this kid never was super like, gotta get every girl in the class, I don't know if I would have ever moved to the other side of the room. Like he's the
Mhm.
one who initiated me to go over there. So I feel like the universe used him.
I
And
see.
yes. So then that's how I met Katie. And now I'm on the other side of the room. He's already tried to talk to Katie. Me and Katie become friends. And we had our phones open and we matched the messages. We're like, oh, okay. He said this. Did he send you this picture too? He sent like a picture of like a drink. And then she's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I got the same picture.
Which is so crazy. It's crazy to me on so many levels, but to stay on topic, I think like that's kind of what I'm talking about, like soul tribe members. Like
Yeah.
you have these like signs, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that are like really big indicators of like, dang, like there's like so much alignment here. Like I had a lot of that growing up,
Right.
and at the time I didn't know what it was. But like you know those relationships, like it feels familiar. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like you've known them for lifetimes kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and then we bonded over it. Like
Mm,
that was what brought us together. Us
which is
both
so funny.
laughing about this
Yeah.
guy and
Mm,
now we are like inseparable and we just have but she's actually one of the people which really makes me feel like she's a soul tribe member
mm,
when there is that like I'm not criticizing you like I want to help you, you
yeah.
know,
Mm,
where it isn't like hey Laura, you're going too fast for me right now. I can't be your friend. It was like, look, I need you to understand I'm a little bit of a slower person. And I don't want you to think And it was just like so much more healthy. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I didn't know people communicated like this.
And I wonder too, I just had this realization, maybe thought that how like mental health has been taking off in the last couple of years or
Hmm.
5 years have been increasing. And like those conversations are being encouraged. And it's like when you have those types of vulnerable conversations, you find really good alignment. So like in a sense, collectively, or like as a society creating more alignment on the like one to one.
Yep.
You see where I'm going with this?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay, and it's like it's so strange to see because like just like me and my circles, like the conversations that I've had like that are like super vulnerable have created insane alignment where it's like, oh, and then those people I've had like those conversations with have been to me probably like some sort of soul tribe member.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so it's just really interesting. So that kind of plays into like humanity escalating in the sense of like collective consciousness kind of
Exactly.
thing. Yeah,
And my alignment to her came after my 12-year childhood friendship ended. So I actually aligned to her a couple weeks after that.
that's
So that
insane.
it's almost, yeah, that's why I feel like it
Yeah,
was like
you
super
were in the
attractive.
orbit and you got shot out and you're like in space floating for a couple of weeks and then picked up.
Mhm. Yep. She probably was like, "You're gonna have to get cut off by your childhood best friend, and then you're gonna go to
Mhm.
massage school. You're gonna meet me." That's where like I
Yeah.
think about all these like contracts that were written or things like that. But what you said about the collective alignment,
Hmm.
it is so resonating to like the way that I feel and like where we're headed as a
Yeah.
collective, because I do feel like more masculine energies are evolving and feminine energies are evolving. But in duality of life, that also means that there is a handful of women and men that are also extremely devolving and becoming
Mm.
worse and becoming, so there might be like a uh plethora of divine unions in a couple of years, but there's just
Yeah.
going to be a another plethora of people who are out of control, have no discipline, they're all over the place, they're dating 1,000
Interesting.
people.
Yeah.
So I feel like the union will align, but at the same time, those karmic energies, the tests will be harder. They'll be more in your face a little bit.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I think too, I mean, it's balance.
Right.
It feels like balance, unfortunately.
From my experience of like hearing people's relationships and stuff like that,
Mm.
I feel like it's a split road, kind of like before. I feel like there's going to be a big spiritual, like goddess energy that will align. And then there's going to be like that, I don't want to call them names, but just like the people that like don't respect themselves, they don't respect other
Mm.
people, they will rip out your heart, they will do this and do that. But I feel like at the same time there will be that elevation of, because I like to think of it in like you said, with the duality and like the balance, like nature
Mm.
has to find a balance. So if too many people go into divine union, there has to be the same amount of energies that are trying to kind of like mess with like the nuclear family of what that is, of like the wife, the husband, the children, like stuff like
Mm.
that.
Yeah. It's
So
all
stick with the divine union, people. Don't go the other way.
yeah, I think like at the end of the day, if everybody's looking for alignment and authenticity, which stuff keeps coming up and it's been, I don't know, like really big, at least in my circles and the stuff that I do.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're following that, that's really all you can do. Like
Right.
there's no like trying to force a connection or you just show up and you be vulnerable and that creates the alignment and then you continue to do that. And as
Hmm.
long as you're on that path, you're good. And if you're not on that path,
Yeah.
you know. Like you don't like you can't
Right.
ask anybody. Like you internally are like, oh yeah, this isn't good for me. This isn't what I want.
Hmm. And a lot of the times I feel like the external, since as humans we're so like things and people and
Hmm.
we lack that internal energy. I feel like there I feel like the universe is in constant communication with us. So you'll hear it from a friend, you'll hear it on a TV show. Like it'll try to align you on the path, but a lot of people just go straight down where they feel like they should be going or what they know they shouldn't be doing, but still do it anyway. And then kind of like they get to like that pivotal moment where they're like, what was I been doing? Why is this all happening
Hmm.
to me? And
Yeah.
then back and forth with when you do align with those people, you have those soul tribe members to decipher things with. You
Yeah.
know, you have those
Hmm.
people to be like, all right, I felt this, I had this dream, I saw this sign, let's talk about it.
So true. And you like, I mean, you don't have to be crazy intuitive to like know when
Hmm.
something's not good for you, or like
Right.
when something's like hurting your peace, or I
Hmm.
mean, it's not. Don't overthink it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's not like rocket science. Like you
Yeah.
just
Right.
feel out the
You know.
vibes.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah. So we have for our opinions on and experience stories of twin flame soulmates. We'll probably maybe do a part two of this in the future. Our next episode is going to be about alchemizing energy and being in your own creator mode, alchemizing your experiences, your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts. Would you like to add anything else?
Yeah. So with alchemizing, we really hope to help people kind of take their experience and energy and push it in well, speaking of alignment, in a direction of like alignment and what feels true to yourself
Mm-hmm.
while kind of toning out the other, I don't know, nonsense necessarily in your life and how to do that and some of our experiences with doing that. So thank you guys so much for listening and comment below your experiences with contracts if you have any twin flames, soul flames. What is it?
Yeah, twin flames and soulmates, soul tribe
So
members. Thank you for being here and for watching, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.